Hi.
Hi, Stephanie.
Hi.
Hey, Natalie.
I'm actually not feeling that great. I sent you I sent you a long email yesterday about I've been feeling kind of weird, and then last night it was like everything wanted to be purged. I'm hoping that it's actually getting stuff out, because I actually felt a little better afterwards, but I'm a little tired because I didn't sleep very well. So I'll do my best.
Yeah, no problem. Well, I have a little bit of a cold, so. Yeah. Okay, let's go ahead and begin. I'd like to start this class with just invoking the meditation and doing a chant to Saraswati, kind of the patron deity for learning. So I'll invite you all to have a comfortable seated posture and closing the eyes, lengthening from the top of the head and allowing the spine to dangle down, loosening between the vertebrae. Letting the breath settle into the body. Tuning your attention to the inhales and exhales. Allowing us to come to receptive space for this prayer and invocation to Saraswati. Om Ya Kundendu Tushara Haradabala Ya Shubra Vastra Vrita Ya Vina Varadanda Manditakara Ya Shveta Padmasana Ya Brahma Chuta Shankara Pravritirvi Deva Sada Vandita Samam Patu Saraswati Bhagavati Nishesha Jadyapaha. This is translated as, "Oh, the bright one, like the garland of new drops of the moon, who wears a white garment, transmitting pure white energy of knowledge, giving gestures with her vina, a musical instrument and symbol of humility, with ornamented hands, who is white and who sits in the light lotus pose in the white lotus, who is unchangeable, who is worshipped by Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiva. May she protect us from the darkness of ignorance and remove the heaviness and dullness from our consciousness." So staying in that presence, awakening intuition, knowledge, the path to learning. I'll invite you after about 3 or 4 more breaths to come present to the classroom and open your eyes. So welcome everyone to today's call, which is the last class of the Chikitsa module. And really kind of a completion too to a lot of the Ayurvedic Wellness Council training, though there's more classes kind of on the verge, and still have to finish up some internship pieces. We kind of are concluding a lot of the core information with this class. I'd like to just kind of go over some of the things that we still have to cover in this class. I'd like to continue where we left off with general manager of Kapha dosha and going into Samanarama kind of Kapha conditions. And then go over Samanarama malas so we can understand that a little more. And I'll conclude that section. And the main topic for today was also going to be going over kind of care of the ears, nose, head, and so on. And the way, really what we're discussing here, what I'm going to go into in more detail is nausea treatment. That's something of the Panchakam realm which can be used well by you all if you understand how to work with it. And also we'll kind of talk about some of the other treatments like ear oiling, oil pulling, other things like that. Then it'd be good to go over kind of your review for your test at the end of this module. Okay, so I have that up. I gave that to Brittany already. She's working on that to get it up hopefully today for y'all. So let's begin by with a little bit of questions and answers. Okay, and just if there's anything from last week particular that needs to be clarified and so on. And we'll have more opportunities later too.
I had a question about something in the textbook.
Yeah.
It's kind of funny because I was reading this last night, and then I feel like I experienced a little bit of it. For the this is in the Vata section about using like a shock treatment.
Yeah.
That actually would increase the Vata and get it out. And I was thinking, because I have all these tremors that don't seem to stop, that maybe I should try dry brushing and see what that does. So I was, and then as I mentioned before the call, then like my body just like wanted to purge a bunch of stuff last night, and I was like, oh, maybe that's, it's not quite the same thing, but it felt like once that happened, even though it was unpleasant, that it cleared some stuff out. So I was just wondering, I mean, I know at the wellness counselor level, we probably wouldn't use the shock treatment that much, but I was curious about it. And would there any be kind, like with the dry brushing example, would that be something
that wouldn't be sufficient
that could be done?
Shock treatment at all. That's too gentle.
Okay.
No,
Okay.
they're really talking about shock treatment here. You know, the Trasan is an extreme therapy. We're talking about branding you. We're talking about scaring the hell out of you or whatnot, like to create the opposite effect, to kind of like snap people. Like last class, we kind of talked about that a little bit, but it's drastic. But it's like a drastic measure if someone's in like a completely disassociated state or whatnot. You know, and they do use shock treatment for mental illness. Still, you know, it's still there. It's less used these days, but you know, it's used more predominantly a long time ago in the hospitals and so on. But I mean, we're talking about electricity to your brain, you know, so it's full on, you know, it's full on. But it works in certain cases. You know, it can work to bring someone out of that. And they have that theory goes in a lot of natural medical systems, in which you tip the balance, you just go overboard so much that it actually resets it. The body, our body is intelligent and it can reset by doing that, but it's not something that is normally practiced. One has to be extremely skillful. You know, so no, dry brushing, definitely not an example of that. You know, it's more.
Yeah, because it was in the book, and then it was also like, you know, needles and the murmur points like acupuncture, and I'm thinking that doesn't feel very shocking to me.
Yeah.
So maybe
have you ever
it's
had
an extreme form.
Chinese acupuncture?
Had what?
Like, I mean, if you go with people that do some really true deep needling, oh my God, it's intense. It can be, you know, it's like, it just depends.
Yeah.
You know? People in America don't practice that kind of acupuncture, but I've had it before. It's like, it's full on.
Yeah, my acupuncturist said like some of the needles in China are like huge and really scary compared to what we have
I've
here.
had needles go right through my musculature. You know,
Oh.
Yeah, different story. Yeah. Rafaela, do you have a question?
Yeah, well, yes. One referring just to what we said, I was thinking a client of mine had, no, a client actually is my Jyotish teacher. He had his heart restarted, mainly they stop it to get it restarted and get back to the normal rhythm. So it's a kind of the same. It's not Ayurvedic, it's a modern medicine, but
Sure.
with the same principles.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so we do use those kind of things. You can still see the reminiscences of it in some circumstances, modern allopathic medicine. I mean, all those little cardiac machines that are sent for people with heart attacks. That's exactly what it is, right? That's like jolt electricity to kickstart. In Chinese medicine, if someone has a heart attack, what they recommend is you take their pinky, since their small intestine meridian is here, and you chop it as hard as you can, not to bite it off, but to chop it if someone's heart fails, and that can restart the heart. Is of that tremendous stimulation on there. I'm sure they'd probably stick a needle right through it too, or do something like that, but never had an opportunity to try, but nonetheless. Yeah, so there's examples of that, but yeah, it's not something we're really using in practice. Okay, any other questions kind of before we get into the material, especially from like last week, material kind of Vata Pitta management and so on, Sama. Yeah.
Sorry, I'm just going to say my internet's really bad, so that I hope it comes through.
Yeah, I can hear you fine.
Okay, great. So just to make sure I'm understanding correctly in the general management of the doshas, so you can have, for example, an imbalanced vata condition going on, but if there is ama, the ama can also be either vata, pitta, or kapha. So you may have to treat the ama first if it's a pitta condition, and then to the dosha after that. I'm just a little confused.
Good question. This is important to clarify. So you're not going to see ama of a different dosha when you have an increased vata condition. It's going to be, you see, the way that we want to talk about it, just to understand the Sanskrit, sama or near ama, that means with or without. So vata with or without. So it's not going to be like a vata condition and pitta ama, right? It's going to be vata with or without ama, pitta with or without ama, kapha with or without ama. Okay? Now, if you're seeing that,
the ama itself is not classified as vata, pitta, kapha, or is it also?
No, it's not. It's ama. Okay, so just to understand, the ama is not classified as dosha. What it is it tags onto dosha. It's created by that dosha. So it's kind of like when a dosha enters a dhatu, they amalgamate. When a dosha causes ama to be generated because it messes with agni of that, tissues, etc., it will cause the ama to show up in these ways. But that's in association with the dosha. Okay?
Okay, so in my case, because I had emailed you that a massage previously didn't make me worse, but it made me worse over the weekend, and I have had vata pushing pitta, and probably ushna vata because of the hot vata because I had the heat. So you call it sama vata A, and sorry, I'm not articulating myself well.
So just to clarify, if you had ama and you had a massage with a lot of oil, that would probably really not be great for you at all.
Right, but the second part of my question was, I had massages before that didn't aggravate me, and now it really aggravated me, which I think partly was the peppermint oil. But I'm wondering if that's because the ama is starting to come up because of all the healing that I've been doing, and now it's
could be.
And would that maybe be why then it seems like it needs to be purged because it's coming up more now, and before it was maybe too deep to get out.
Associated. It could just be a needle, kind of like the straw that broke the camel's back, too. That's likely. I don't think the massage in itself. So it's hard to tell. It'd be really, really hard to tell.
Is there a point at which like the ama is so deep that it's hard to move it out, and then suddenly it'll start to I mean, because in the holistic community, alternative medicine, people talk a lot about detox, which I think is overused.
Yeah.
And so I'm just wondering, like, if I'm
No,
feeling, you know what I'm saying? What's the difference between?
Yeah. So I'm trying to answer your question. So mind you that the massage will stir up. It depends. There's so many factors. I'd have to know everything about what type of massage, how deep. But it stirs up stuff from the deeper tissues. Okay, that gets brought into circulation. So then you start feeling stuff that gets brought out into circulation. So now if it's not then goes to the GI tract, then it's not getting eliminated, and then it may just refine new places. So it could be an aggravation. But it's usually not enough to create a big issue. It's usually tagged onto something else, which is likely.
Right. But if you do have AMA that's exiting, would you maybe have some GI stuff while that's, you know what I'm saying? Like, would that be kind of detox?
Essentially, the AMA's trying to get to the GI tract for elimination, for vomita, virachina, etc., or basti, so that's the point of panchakarma, So yeah, AMA is essentially getting there, and it could cause aggravation in the GI tract, yeah. Yeah, that's the natural flow of it. Anyways, that's the backward flow of it. It doesn't necessarily get there. Like a massage wouldn't do it that, but repeated massage in a certain context and so on. So it depends, it's a lot of factors. Yeah, I think the point that we made there before is really important. So everybody kind of get that AMA is not doshic. It's not like AMA is AMA. It's just associated with dosha. So if vata causes AMA, it's caused vata with AMA. So what you're doing is you're adding the gunas of AMA, which is universal for any dosha, for any circumstance. It's all still the same gunas. You're adding that to the doshas that are aggravated of that, the gunas that are aggravated of a certain dosha. So when you have sticky, heavy, cloudy added to dry, light, mobile, that's when you see vata with ama, right? Does everybody kind of get that? You got to add the gunas together with the gunas of the dosha, and that is the sama, the with condition. Now, if you don't see those ama gunas with the dosha aggravation, it's nirama. So it's going to show up differently, right? Right. This gives us, as Ayurvedic practitioners and students, this gives us a way of determining, not just by tongue or just some conventional, just the general signs of ama. This gives us a way of determining, like, is the dosha kind of behind that because it's showing up in this particular way? So that way, hey, we may have to deal with the dosha and ama, but we may have to first deal with the ama first, or deal it in a particular way that works with the dosha and the ama, thinking of both together, right? So in that note, kapha with ama is going to be so similar, whereas vata and ama with ama is going to be really interesting. It's going to be two things that are absolutely different. Right? They're opposite qualities, pretty much, vata and ama, but they can show up in very particular ways. Right? So one thing, again, I always like to go back to this, is when you look at the sutras about the signs and symptoms of ama, what are the first two? Shroto Roda, which is very kapha, right? Very kind of kapha guna, right? Blockage. But then the next one is vata aggravation. Vata acting erratically because it's blocked, right? Very interesting, right? Right there, that shows you that's a great way of showing samavata. And as we know, vata's behind a lot of issues. So vata with ama shows up very, very commonly. Anyways, great question there. That's really, really important. Any other questions? Kind of to clarify that.
Yes, I have a question.
Yeah, please.
Well, in that note, when I was reading, there's all these things are tridosha too.
Yeah.
So in that sense, I know you told us to choose our battles, but then
Yeah.
it gets more complicated, right? When it's tridoshic.
It is more complicated as tridoshic, but it's still, I think a way to look at it is don't get overwhelmed because something's tridoshic. You still apply a simple, straightforward approach. You don't have to get very complicated. You just have to be mindful and maybe not use as extreme therapies, which you're probably not going to be doing anyways, in one direction. Like, you don't want to, like, if you're like, okay, it's rooted in Vata, so let's use really hot, really strong therapies right now. We're not going to do that if it's tridoshic. But we just kind of have to be mindful, but still choose your battles and see how it goes. If you've chosen the wrong battle, you did a therapeutic trial, then you choose another battle to go. Okay? And there's some generalities too. It's like if things are tridoshic, right? If you have a tridoshic issue going on, what would you generally do? Well, you would treat Vata with lifestyle because that's what Vata responds best to lifestyle. You would treat Pitta with diet because Pitta responds best with diet. And then you would treat Kapha kind of in the same way, like you're going to treat Vata, a little bit of lifestyle, but that's where you'd also throw in a little bit more exercise, a little bit more aggressive therapy, right? So that's just a generalized approach, right? And if you have Ama, you're going to treat Ama the same. You're going to do Ama Pachan. You're going to burn Ama through all the various ways that you can, okay?
And then my other question was, thank you so much. It's sometimes Ama is lodged in the dhatus, right?
Yes.
And sometimes it's hard to detect either on the tongue, or so that it's very como hidden, or it's very deep inside the dhatus.
It's not so it's not very hidden, but go ahead and we'll talk about it.
So can we, because I remember in some cases, even if the person doesn't show very clear signs of Ama, if we dig a little bit more, there's Ama.
Yeah. So you have the general signs of Ama, and then you have Ama, how it's going to show up with the doshas. Now, next level is, what does Rasa Ama look like? Well, let's think about this. If you apply the principles of Ama, the gunas of Ama, to Rasa Dhatu, which is already kind of in Kapha tissue, right? Will look like lymphatic congestion, will look like congestion in the body a lot, will look like high triglycerides, will look like high cholesterol, will look like swelling, will look like poor immunity, things like And how does the body usually deal with Ama in Rasa is fever. It tries to burn it off. And so that's how it's so fevers are Ama and Rasa, more or less. Okay? Now Rakta, what does it look like that? So with the blood's going to be, you personally have abnormal blood tests. It may be kind of like they may have low vigor. It's going to be more lethargy and low vigor in there. Ama in muscle, is that going to be, my muscles feel good, or are they going to be kind of painful, kind of, pains here and there, and inflammation sometimes, all kinds of stuff like that. Ama in the bone tissue, that's pain in the joints a lot. In fact, what's the name of arthritis in Ayurveda? Amavata. Right? Okay. And so on and so on. Ama in Maja, it's going to make you unclear. It's going to make your mind, erratic, your nervous system. It can be pain, nerve pains, all kinds of stuff, neuritis, all kinds of different things. Ama in the reproductive systems, right? Reproductive disorders, blockages, erratic pain, the cycles being messed with. Right? Kind of heaviness and that sticky quality, the blood sticky quality, things like that. Yeah. So let me just say that in most cases, it's going to lead to, like, if Ama's in a Dhatu, what does that mean? What stage of Samprapti does it have to be?
third and fourth stage.
Well, more than third.
Fourth.
It has to be fourth. It has to be in fourth. And by the time it's really generating, it's probably in Vyakti. So we're talking about, a little more serious issues. We're talking about like diagnosable pathological things, right? So that's a very important thing to know. It's not going to be just like a little ama, if it went through to the tissue, it's a serious thing, so you have a disease, you have an issue going on here.
So when we're in like fourth stage of Samprapti, there's usually ama logged in, not just a dosha, or not necessarily.
Not necessarily. No, remember, it could be sama or nirama still.
Always. Okay.
Always. Ama, it's not a requirement, but think about when the dosha goes through the agni, is the agni going to be strong? No. It's going to be weakened, so it sets it up to generate ama. So will you likely see ama if it's going on for a long time? Probably, right? It's not necessarily the case. Someone could be eating very clean, so very good lifestyle, but they could still have this issue, right? But but over time, it's likely the ama will start accumulating because of the dysfunctional agni if it's not being dealt with. Okay, so keep that in mind. So you're not going to see, you will see these cases a lot, but it's something that requires a much deeper approach. That's where, Panchakarma really comes in. And also, deeper herbal preparations to burn the ama, do ama pacha, or different deep tissues. Okay, so very, very, very important to see that. And I think the big take home here is, as far as an Ayurvedic wellness counselor, your big thing is to be able to clear ama in the more digestive tract in that area, and really in the bloodstream too. It's like by good diet, by herbs that help a dipana pacham. Now, the great thing is what happens when you do that. What happens when you start clearing ama in the digestive tract and circulation? What happens? The rest of the ama in the body is invited there, right? So we can't get around doing deep healing. We can't skirt around it. Right? It's going to happen if you're doing a good job with what you're doing there. That's the beauty of it all, right? It's a slow, kind of steady road, but it's a good road. So if you got something to change the diet, the lifestyle, everything, and you're continuously pulling ama from those deep tissues, slowly cleansing them over time, wonderful. What a great thing. And it may really be the best thing because they may not be able to handle, maybe too intensive. So I hope that kind of brought that together for you. But yeah, absolutely. If you're not seeing a lot of ama on the tongue or kind of in the digestive system and stuff in the blood, then treat it as a neurama condition, right? And then if and when ama starts showing up from the deep tissues, then you can tackle that. So you may know, let me just say, someone may have a disease, but they may not have ama indirectly in their abhyantara marga. Treat it as nirama. Treat the dosha. I mean, it's almost impossible for you not to do some dipan pachan, right? You're going to do some of that, which is already going to deal with that, with the ama that's coming in from the deeper tissues eventually. Yeah. Like I always have a smile on my face when someone comes in, they have a pretty clean tongue and everything like that. And it's like, cool, okay, I'll start treating this. And then they start getting ama. I'm like, oh, good, it's coming up. Right? And then they're like, oh, I'm not doing so great. Good. It's like, it's part of the process. I just recently had a client like that she was having a lot of issues, but I was like, look, we got to stabilize it. You got to kind of do this. So I put her on a little, eating just khichdi, just really gentle diet. I gave her some good pacha, deepan pachan stuff. Oh man, her tongue's been coated like crazy for 2 weeks now doing that. But now she's starting to feel better. We've got enough ama out of the deeper tissues. It's slow. It wasn't panchakarma that we did. She couldn't do it in panchakarma right now. But yeah.
Is there like a specific Ayurvedic protocol to treat like bacterial infections and
yeah
that are not necessary? yeah, I like bacteria can como show different symptoms depending on the
Well,
people.
bacteria are going to, you see, in Ayurveda we call it krumi, right? And parasite bacteria kind of things. Now, of course,
And viral.
yeah, viral, so it's going to be, what is bacteria going to do? How does bacteria function? How does that stuff work? It creates ama. It being in there itself is generally not the issue. It's the ama it creates that's the issue. So you're going to burn the ama. Now, you're usually going to see inflammation and you're going to see ama. So what is the best taste to use when you have pitta? And then you have, ama is kapha-esque no matter what. So when you have pitta and kapha, what's the best flavor? Bitter. Exactly. What's every antibiotic, pharmaceutical medicine, as well as every bitter herb pretty much out there, especially the ones that are antiviral and all that, they are bitter and they're pungent. That burns some ama, doesn't it? They're strong, right? You take golden seal, you take osha, right? It's strong, it's bitter, and it has some pungency. It cuts too, especially when you get fresh, it just cuts. Right? Hence in Ayurveda, the big Ayurvedic antibiotic has a beautiful name. It's called Mahasudarshan. Okay, that means great, and Sudarshan is what Vishnu holds in his hands. It's this disc. It's basically a saw blade. It's the great saw blade. It's bitter and it's pungent. Right? So it has this deeper meaning in Ayurveda. It's so beautiful. Right? Mahasudarshan or Sudarshan. Mahasudarshan is for ama in the deep tissues. Sudarshan is for rasa rakta. And it's this classical Ayurvedic formula to deal with bacterial and kind of nasty, kind of viral, etc. infections. But it's bitter as heck. Yeah.
If my children, they recently had a virus that gave a sore throat, cough, and migraines. So this will be great. But could you add to it Bacopa Monnier because to clear? When I'm thinking the migraines, it must be the bacteria created toxins in the brain, so it's trying to get it out. Maybe Bacopa, will it help?
Bacopa can be used as a vehicle. It's not a bad choice. I would do that more than Brahmi because that's a little heavier herb. Vacha would be really good. Calamus. Yeah, actually, because that will actually burn ama. It's used for ama pacham.
Okay.
Yeah. So vacha, but you still want some of the bitters in there to kind of, deal with that situation. Yeah. But then again, the headaches are kind of tricky because you have to make sure you need enough stuff to also analgesic. You have to help them with that. Right? So bitters and aspirin, right? Yeah, good questions. Thank you. This is lovely. It's I love it when you all are kind of taking this and applying this in all these good situations to understand this stuff. So very, very good questions. Okay, well, let's get into our subject matter because we're actually going into kapha, and then we're going to call it kapha and ama. So we're gonna bridge this, okay? And then we're going to talk about sama and nirama in specific to the malas. So again, how do we, what are some more things besides just the general signs and symptoms of ama? Besides then applying those to the doshas, sama, nirama, dosha, then what are some other ways when we ask about sweat, when we ask about urine, when we ask about stool, that we can have an idea that ama is there, okay? It just makes us that much more confident that we are going to start an approach to deal with ama, doing ama pachan approaches, or not. So that'll give us that. So with kapha, if we look at with kapha, the qualities of kapha again are similar to ama, right? And we're qualities of kapha are like heavy, cool, sticky, right? So it's very, very, very much similar to ama, and it's hard sometimes. I think one of the most confusing points for Ayurvedic practitioners and students is it kapha or is it ama? Is it dosha with ama or is it kapha? So that's one thing that we really got to understand. Let's go ahead and go over just what's called kapha upakrama, the more general kind of suggestions. When you're dealing with a true kapha case, so kapha constitution shows up like that. So here's some things that you may be trying. So snehana, so oileation. Let's tackle this first. That's usually not the first thing that you think about when someone is with kapha, because they already have oily quality usually. But you could still use certain oils for them. I must admit that of all the years I've had oils on my shelf working with clients, I've never once sold kapha oil to anybody. Hence, I don't really stock it. It's very rare. Because there's other things I'd rather have them do before going to oleation. So for sneha, for kapha, mustard oil, olive oil can be okay externally, not internally, because it's kind of fattening internally. Eucalyptus or tea tree mixed into oils, right, can be very useful. And essentially any heating oil is a good idea for that cool quality if that's how it's showing up. Okay. Now, if someone really has excess of oily quality with kapha, there's oily hair, oily skin, and all this, what's the point of using oil? I would just say no to that therapy. But if you're not seeing that, then the oil may be a good way of getting the herbs into them and warming them up. Okay.
What about kapha when it's also like the dryness of vata showing up when there's...
Yeah, well, that's when you would think about snehana, right? When you have kapha and vata, like someone whose kapha is cool, really cold, and his dryness, but his kapha, you can see kind of like excess tissues, then yeah, rub that mustard oil in there, right? That'll heat them up. Ginger packs, right? Dry massage, right? Udvartana powders. This is a great one. Now, it depends. If you have the dryness, you're not going to want that. You would use the oil. One thing that is still important with kapha, that even though you have to be careful with giving them oils, why do we use oils in Ayurveda anyways? What's kind of one of them, besides self-care, besides countering dry, one of the most important things is oil penetrates deeply and it loosens the grip of ama in the tissues. And it loosens kapha in the tissues. That's how licorice works. So why is licorice decent for kapha when licorice as an herb is very demulcent? It's almost slimy. What it does is it gets under the layer of the kapha, that poshaka kapha or avalamba kapha. It makes it slippery and allows you to expectorate it, get it out of there. So oil can be used in that way as it loosens the grip of ama and also just excess kapha. Okay, it's a tricky concept to understand. It's kind of like, why? It doesn't seem like it's balancing, but it does have that quality, so that's important. So if you put a heating oil in there, it'll kind of burn toxins, it'll burn ama, but also kind of get it out of there so it can be released by nasya, released by other methodologies, okay, purgation, etc. Okay, so important to remember that, why you would even use that with kapha. Again, it's going to be less common. It just depends on your clientele and who you're working with. But I rarely kind of see a kapha. I've seen maybe only 10 or 15 true kaphas in my practice. It's just not my usual clientele I get. Now, Svedan is very nice for kapha. Right? That's a more obvious therapy, sweating therapy. So eucalyptus, dry radiant heat. So instead of using like moist heat, have them go into a dry sauna. Okay. Again, unless you have that vata and kapha, which have the dry skin. Application of hot sandbags, things like that are dry and heating. Vaman. So vomiting therapy, is the key panchakarma therapy for kapha. Using of course, licorice is what's usually used. You make a really strong licorice decoction, it's emetic. But some people do like the more yogic version of that, in which they use salt water. Okay? That's one of the ways, or they use that cloth, dalti, right, with that to kind of keep kapha at bay. And it's not a bad practice for some people to do that on a regular basis, just induce a gentle vomiting action, of course. Obviously not someone that has like food issues or things like that, but this can be a useful, helpful thing. I mean, how many of us have been sick or had a stomach bug and you threw up and you felt a lot better? It's a natural, it's one of your body's natural ways of eliminating bacteria, toxins, etc., mucus. So I was actually considering, since I have all this sinus congestion, it's the way the cold's hit me, for me to do vomit would be a great idea right now, because it would draw all that out, in and out of my system as a panchakarma therapy. Now, cardamom is another good herb. For instance, out of the herbs that we have, cumin, cardamom are very useful for that. They kind of do that. They're expectorants. They release mucus from the chest and from the lymph, too.
And
yeah.
And Damina, we would want to do only with panchakarma, right?
Well, it depends. You could do a light version by just having someone drink a couple glasses of salt water and putting their hand on there. Okay, it's really not that big of a deal. It's of all the panchakarma therapies, the most scary for everybody is vomit. It's like, there's no one, it's not saying it's pleasant. But then again, is it pleasant to do any of the others? No, but it works. It works very, very well. So it's worth trying. If it's not going to aggravate you, don't have too much vata coming up in the head and things like that. But if you have a lot of cold congestion, it's worth trying it and seeing how good you feel. It really does. Again, gentle. Do like the yogic one, which you drink just salt water and just throw that up. And it can usually you'll be surprised how much mucus comes up and so on if you really truly have some kapha aggravation. I rarely get that, but when I get sinus stuff, that's how it shows up.
The yogi practice of swallowing the cotton strip and then bringing it back up, or even for the nose, is the what's it called? Is again? Oh,
You take it.
Yeah.
I forget the name of that too, but
I can't remember the name. Yes.
But what is that? What are the gunas of that? It's dry. It's rough.
Yeah.
That's why they have you do it. It's dry. It's a cheesecloth. You take it down there in the belly. Yeah. It's like, and you know what? Ultimately, it makes you gag.
Yeah.
So it's stimulating that. Tongue scraping. When you scrape your tongue properly, if you do it enough and you got enough pressure and you're going up and down and back far enough, it makes you gag. It creates that vomit response. It also stimulates your organs, right? So you see that in a lot of Ayurvedic therapies, yoga therapies, but it's not a negative thing if used properly. Bitter, pungent, and astringent foods and herbs are all indicated for kapha. Right, millet, corn, buckwheat with spices, spicy foods. That's where, a kapha person is the type of person that can pull off the spicy foods on a regular basis. Right? I'd like to also point out, you tend to see that then in cultures that people's constitutions, they tend to be larger body people. Not all, but in a lot of cultures that you see their food being generally spicy and hot and stuff like that. Okay? It's kind of interesting to see. They're naturally trying to keep that at bay. Strong, dry wine. So kaphas can pull off using kind of strong, dry wines to kind of keep that dipan pachan going, because their agni tends to be manda, right? And that's used to really stimulate. Now we're talking about like ginger wine, pipali wine, things like that. So it's very heating. Staying awake late at night, it's good for vata. I mean, for kapha, not for vata. But if someone just has a kapha aggravation, doesn't have the vata and all that in there, wow, okay. Get them to not sleep all the time. They don't have a tendency to sleep a lot, take naps and all that. No, those are the people that should only get 6 hours a night of sleep, right? So And that'll induce that dry, rough, and light qualities. Hard physical labor, right? So like for to manage kapha, get them doing things and do very physical things, activity. So if someone has a kapha imbalance, as long as they're in decent enough strength to do such things, that's when you get them doing some big exercise, more stronger exercise. There's a great story in Dr. Lod's book. It's like his guru, this one guy wanted to lose weight. He was really overweight, and so the guru made him get up at 4 a.m., every morning, run up a giant hill to the temple with a bucket of water, circumambulate it like 108 times, and then dump the water and run down the hill every morning at 4 a.m. So A, he didn't sleep. He had to do very vigorous exercise. Yeah, no problem. All his issues are solved within a matter of months of doing that. I think that's another thing is just that how emphasize exercise is just such a good thing for kapha management, right? And to some degree, ama, right? It is one of the shamana therapies, vyayama, right? Exercise, because they'll bring ama from the deeper tissues. Right? Then you have to make sure you eliminate it too. The exercise is just fantastic, and kaphas those are the kinds that you can actually make to do really strong exercises without it being a liability. Samadhavata is not appropriate to do that. But exercise, we know it improves circulation, kindles agni, burns calories. It starts in certain types of exercise. If you do an aerobic exercise under the aerobic limit, then that's more fat burning exercise. Okay. As opposed to sugars and carb burning. That's another thing is you can have them do endurance activities. That ultimately would be the best because that'll target meta dhatu, fat burning. Kaphas, a general recommendation is lots of sex, right? Because it's going to aggravate the qualities that are going to be beneficial for kapha. Right? And then on the flip side, like giving up your comforts. So these are the types of people that also do well. I mean, they don't want to, but this is the type that, fasting, giving up a lot of comforts, living a little more austere lifestyle for a little while. Gems and metals like copper and gold, rubies, heating, can be really useful for kaphas. Pranayam, Bastrika, Kapalabhati, great pranayams for kaphas. This again just increases agni, it stimulates heat. Strong mantras. This is the type of people that can deal with being a devotee of Kali or Hanuman or so on. Dry massage, really deep tissue work, connective tissue work to break up that kapha, that kind of stiffness, adhesion, staticness. Nasya you would use for kapha, vacha oil, eucalyptus steaming, right? Heating nasya, ginger. I was about to try, this is starting to get better, but if it wasn't, I was going to try ginger nasya and see how that works, because I know it's really strong, and it's that would probably clean and get my passages. What I often do when I have sinus congestion, for instance, is I make a ginger paste and I put it all around my eyes. I was tempted to do it for this class, but and it cleans out the sinuses like this. It's heating and penetrating, drying to all that congestion there. It's good for vata headaches too, but it really works when you have kapha congestion.
I have a question. Well, I know with obesity, that not necessarily means that the person is kapha, right? It could be a vata constitution that is obese. But would we treat it kind of following these kapha guidelines?
Yeah, again, you have to see how many doshas you have there. What's the root cause? Is it really the kapha? Are they eating a really heavy kapha diet and doing nothing? Or have they been doing a lot of nervous stress and everything like that, and then they gain weight from that? So go for the root cause. So it's either vata pushing kapha or kapha just accumulating on its own. And so you have to really find out when did it happen in their life? How did it happen? Right? And it's usually what you're going to, somewhere in my 30s or something, I started gaining a lot of weight. Well, what are you doing in the 30s? Trying to raise kids and run 3 businesses? It's like that. It's not going to be kapha from just eating likely. It's going to be kapha, it's vata is going to be pushing kapha tremendously in those kind of cases. Whereas, someone who's obese and really has more kapha is like, I've just never done anything. I love eating steak every day and cheese, and I've been doing it for 20 years. It's like, well, okay, that's kapha is kapha, right? It is what it is. But they're probably going to be a kapha person too, kind of more that mentality and so on. But when you see someone who's like really, has a sharpness, kind of like intensity, and so on, it's probably they're not in kapha, but that's been a reaction to that stress. Right? Great question. But would you still consider kapha reducing stuff? Yeah. That's why I put in like a vata kapha diet. It's like that, mix it. It's tricky diet, but you gotta work with that. So lastly, colors, red, orange, yellow, right? Those kind of colors. Purple is useful too for spaciousness. So if there's a lot of density. So heating colors. So some of the dosha pratyanic herbs that you use with kapha are going to be punarnava. Right? That's the key, like one. Bibitaki of Triphala is useful for that. And trikatu, right? And all the things in trikatu, ginger, black pepper, pipali, those are all great herbs. Cardamom and cinnamon are really good as circulatory stimulants if you have to kind of stagnate, someone doesn't exercise and you get them to do that. And then the bitters come in with kapha. Bitter is a good balancing flavor for kapha. Yeah. Let's see. Let's think about a little bit more. Okay, let's talk about sama and nirama kapha. Okay. So as I know, it's going to be a little tricky here because, ama and kapha kind of have the same quality. So if you just add ama to kapha, it's just going to show up as extreme kapha in a way most of the time. But here, let's kind of differentiate most likely what you'll see differences there. So in nirama kapha, you're going to see more of the liquid, watery, thick, kind of cohesive quality, where a key indicator of that same nature when it has ama is the sticky quality. Sticky, stringy, cloudy. Those gunas will be much more emphasized. Because ama isn't necessarily liquid and watery. Right? It is thick, but it's much more sticky. It's that sticky nature of it. It'll emphasize and overemphasize the sticky nature of kapha. Right? And that's where you're going to see, let's say, if we talk about stool, that's where you're going to see that really stickiness of the stool. Even if someone has, regular stools that are going every day, who's kapha, well-formed, but then the stool starts getting really sticky. That's an almost there. Okay, so everybody kind of got that. That's a really important factor, is that you're really going to see sticky flare up for them when they have ama. Otherwise, it won't be so sticky, it'll be more like liquid, thick kind of stuff. Sama kapha is difficult to expectorate. You can't get it out of you. It just can't get it out of you. Whereas nirama kapha is very easy to expectorate. It just flows out of you. It doesn't stick. Like for instance, when I first got this little sinus thing, I wasn't too worried about it because it was just wet. I was dripping. I was like, okay, this isn't too hard. I'm sure it'll just pass through. But then it became congested. I started eating better. I probably started detoxing a little, some ama coming up. Now it's like, But that's the thing, when you have sama kapha, it's just going to cling in there. It's going to be hard to blow in the nose, hard to get out of the lungs. Smell. Kapha doesn't necessarily have a smell. Okay? But if you're having a bad smells, tastes, etc. coming up, ama. Now, healthy kapha, this is interesting. Healthy, or let's say nirama kapha, will actually promote appetite. A person will have appetite. And even if the kapha is increased, doesn't necessarily mean they're not going to have appetite. Kind of what we were talking about before about people like a kapha person who's gaining weight because they're eating a lot. They want to eat. And that oftentimes that can be a kapha, an increase of kapha. It's more that liquid quality. Remember, for Agni, yes, Agni, the fire itself is dry, but the fire needs fuel, and that fuel is liquid, like ghee. And that you need fire and water to actually create digestive enzymes. So that proper amount of water, so you're going to have some hunger. But where kapha with ama is appetite suppressant. Right? That's where you're going to get that manda agni. They're not hungry. They're just eating, maybe emotionally eating, but they're not hungry necessarily, really truly hungry. The kapha is more of as a lubricator and cleaner for the mouth. You can burp easily also. There's just movement's available. There's lubricates for movement to happen. Whereas with ama, it's that sticky, that quality, things are stuck. They can't burp easily. They feel like something's come up, but they can't really burp, things like that. And then you're also going to see, of course, colds, congestion, cough, lymphatic swelling. All those are ama signs. Okay.
More blockage, you would say?
Exactly. Yeah, it's that kind of blockage, impediment, shroto-roda, right? Lymphatic swelling, shroto-roda, coughing because someone's blocking your breathing. like I'm having right now a little bit. Colds, that congestion, just sticking, clawing congestion, ama. Like for instance, I'm using myself as an example, but it's a good example here, is this, my sinus stuff is not just a mellow kapha thing. I'm fighting something. I have some sort of infection. I'm taking herbs through that. So the infection is causing ama. That bacteria, whatever it may be, that may be hanging there is causing ama. And because of that, I'm having those congestion, cough, that sticky, that thickness. At first, it didn't lodge in and cause enough ama, so it was more like dripping, more watery. And it was cough aggravation, but it wasn't ama yet. And then it hit the ama phase. Instead, it just became glued in there, and I was having pain and all kinds of stuff. Okay? How many of you have experienced that? When you've had an infection, upper respiratory or so on, right? And it's actually bacterial or viral or something like that, then it's generating ama. Any questions about that? Because I know that one's a tricky one, the kapha. What's excess kapha without ama versus with ama? So kind of to put it in a nutshell, look for the liquid versus sticky quality. That's going to be the real telltale sign of what we're seeing there. Now, hey, Brittany. Welcome. It's been a while. Okay. You came right as we're going to talk about malas and poop. So there we go. Okay, so let's now switch the subject to sama nirama malas. Okay, so at this point, you all have a good handle of general signs and symptoms of ama, the gunas of ama, and then you understand that by adding the gunas of ama to the gunas of the doshas, the aggravated gunas, you get the sama or nirama doshas in general. Now, of course, you're asking these questions, right? You're not necessarily seeing this. It's not a sign. It's more symptoms. People a lot of times, and same thing. You're going to ask questions about the eliminatory tracts. Now, Ama, you want to eliminate it. And Ama, a great way to find Ama is in eliminatory pathways. That's a great way to find indications of Ama, very concrete, obvious ones. Let me remind you, the tongue, when you look at the tongue in the morning, it's on its way to elimination from your digestive tract, right? Your digestive tract is bringing out stuff that it wants to get rid of overnight. And that's why your tongue gets covered overnight, right? So that's one thing to notice. Plus, your mouth is an organ of elimination, right? Because you're breathing through the breath. It's kind of this outward eliminatory thing. By air, by gases, you are eliminating. That's how the Ayurveda doesn't make so clear, but it's known in modern physiology that you actually are eliminating that way. And we know like spit, all kinds of things. There is kind of malas that are there. But the classical malas of Ayurveda, Purisha, so healthy, let's say Nirama stool versus Sama stool. So Nirama stool has kind of more brownish yellow color. Okay. More dark, it's kind of like, if it's straight yellow color, it could be a problem. It could be a liver issue. But more kind of brownish. It doesn't stick to the orifice or toilet. It's more like slightly oily. It's able to just come out easily. It's kind of coated in a way, so it's not sticky. It's well formed. And floating is one thing or another, okay? So a lot of people talk about, if it floats, it's an ama. If it sinks, it's ama. Not necessarily. If you're eating a heavier foods, it's going to sink. It's a simple density issue. Right? If you're eating a lot of meats or things like that, or just heavier diet, root vegetables, it's going to sink. It's not going to float. If you're eating only just some vegetables and milk and fruits or something like that, well, yeah, it probably will float. But it has a lot to do with the content of your food. Now, if someone's eating light foods, but it sinks a lot, okay, that's probably ama. That makes sense? Because that's always, does your poop sink and float? As if that's the only thing you should ask. Right? And much more important is, does it stick? Is it sticky, slimy? Okay. Do you know what I'm talking about? Have you all experienced that yourselves? Yeah, it kind of leaves a trail. That's really what we're looking for. That's where ama's involved. So Sama Purisha, it sticks not only to your anal orifice, difficult to wipe, and to the toilet. Right, it's going to kind of leave a sticky, mark there. So that's it's useful to know from people. And they may mention it every once in a while. It quickly sinks. It's very heavy, but it depends on the type of food you're eating there. Now, diarrhea or loose stools also, especially if there's undigested food or sticky mucus in it, that's another sign of ama. And smell. Nirama Purusha, it's going to smell a little, but it's not going to be really kind of offensive smell. It's not going to have a really strong, bad odor. Strong, bad odor, again, is another sign of ama. We could then add the gunas of the doshas to this, right? So if you're probably going to have a lot drier stool with vata, right? If vata and ama are involved. Okay. And with pitta, you're probably going to have a much more looser. Okay. In both those cases, you may have a lot more undigested food too. And in the kapha, it's going to be thicker, bigger usually, but it's probably going to have more of that sticky quality. That's where it'll show up, like we discussed about samanarama kapha. That really stickiness will come in. I love the features, Carly. But this is one of the best ways that you can be confident about the state of someone's digestion and about ama, and how what you're giving to them is working or not, or how it's proceeding, right? When things start to change and that starts to go away and it starts getting normalized, and you don't have the stickiness, you're doing a great job, right? And they're happy too. They don't want it. Okay, so how about urine? So mutra, sama nirama mutra. So Nirama, without ama urine, got more healthy urine. It has a slight yellowish color, right? Very gentle. It's only slightly kind of acidic. It's not staining. Okay. It's easy to pass. The liquid quality is very clear to it. Now, Sama is going to have a more dark color. It's going to be more highly concentrated. It may not be dark yellow, but it may be cloudy, maybe like turbid, cloudy. It depends on doshas. Again, Pitta will show more dark yellow. Kapha will show more cloudy. Ama in general will just be more cloudy. I'd like to throw in frothiness too. Okay, bubbly, frothy, but it's not necessary. I don't want to say it's like, I haven't found through a lot of research through this is that's an exact correlation, but it's something to be aware of. If you see, if it's frothy, if it's kind of like dark yellow and you have a lot of bubble frothiness, then yeah, okay. That was probably an indication of alma. Smell. It's have a really strong sour smell. And now, obviously if someone eats asparagus or eats kind of certain foods or beets, it's like we have to count that out, or vitamins, multivitamins and stuff like that. I would often ask them to maybe go off that for 4 or 5 days and then see what it's really like. Burning urination, so especially pitta, it's sama pitta is there, that would show up. Stringy sometimes remains and kind of stains the toilet, things like that, can leave a film. Okay, so that's a sign of alma coming through the urine. So our body's going to eliminate alma one way or another, right? Through the stool, through the urine, or many ways. Not one way. It could be many ways. It could be one way. That's why we ask. It also gives us an idea of which channel is it trying to eliminate ama from more. Some people, they're going to have very fine stools, but then in their urine it's really going to be there. So it's kind of an ama that's coming through the more mutravas, shrotas, svedavas. It's going to be somewhere in the water system. Okay? And that's where diuretic herbs are going to be really helpful versus laxative herbs to eliminate. Okay? Versus diaphoretics for sweating. Okay. Everybody kind of following me? If you go back a few classes, that's where you choose your method of elimination. And that's behind modern pharmaceutical pharmacology. Part of what they're trying to do in modern medicine too, pharmaceuticals as well as herbal medicine, is if someone's having like bacterial infection or something, you gotta part of the medicine has to be able to eliminate it through the right route, right? So it's going to have a laxative effect or a diuretic effect or a skin type of sweating effect, and the medicine is made to do that too, strongly usually. So let's go to Sveda, so nirama, sweat. They're going to have a good ability to sweat. When someone says, I don't sweat, I always think, what's going on? Is it Shroto-Roda? Right? Because that blocks the sweat. That could be ama. Okay? So they'll have a decent ability to generate sweat under exertion. It's going to be liquid, clear, and non-smelly. They're not going to have much BO. Okay? And that's an interesting thing. A lot of people are like, it's just a foreign concept. It's like, I've always applied something because I always smell. So if you don't apply something, you smell. No, actually you don't. If you really have very low ama and you're eating really clean and stuff like that, your sweat doesn't really have a smell badly. Anybody experience that at certain times in their lives? It's like, wow, my sweat's. I remember when I first started doing yoga, being vegetarian, and after a couple of years, golly, my sweat it didn't smell at all. It's just like, wow, it's nice. It's not bad. It's like, but that
I don't. My sweat. When I sweat, mine doesn't smell at all, but I do have hammer.
Yeah, and that may not be the route that it comes out for you, right? So that's another thing. You can have ama still, and that may not be the route that's coming out. But for a lot of people, it is. So sama, sveda, yellowish, brownish colors, mineral deposits, and stains. So this is where I like to ask, when you sweat, because you're usually wearing a shirt, is there a stain? It is. I have color. So that's people complain about that. So that is one thing. Sulfur-like smell, ammonia-like smell. Anybody ever experienced that? Anybody that kind of hasn't come out there? I've experienced that before. It's like, whoa. It's like when I'm doing a lot of exercise and I have AMA, it's like that could be there. Now, what will usually come along with that is itchy, burny. You can see dermatitis, eczema, psoriasis, skin conditions. Now, anyone who has a skin condition more than likely has AMA being channeled through their Sveta Mahashrotas. Right there. There's almost always an AMA component to it. Because our Agni, the Project Agni, is getting, worked. Okay. So that's all things to look for. Any questions about that? We're kind of concluding an important section here. If any questions. Sound good? So at this point, you should have a really good grasp, or when studying this, you should get a really good grasp of when and if someone has AMA. And you have some good tools to deal with that, of course. After meals, give AMA pachan substances, whether it's after dinner seeds, doing CCF after the meal, doing Chikitsa, whatever stronger remedies, having them do exercise, cleaning up the diet, all those things to do AMA pachan, or do cleansing. Mono diet's cleansing to help clear that. Right? So we have a lot of tools in our bag to do that. We also have now some good general recommendations how to work more tools to work with Vata Pitta Kapha aggravation, whether the AMA or neurama. Now, raise your hand. How many people think here that probably much more than 50% of the time you're going to see conditions with AMA? Is that? Yeah. That's very common. Is that you're going to see that. It depends on the community and people you work with, but almost always there's going to be some AMA, that's going to show up. I've definitely met a lot of clients come in there and they really don't have AMA. That's awesome. It's great. They have like neuro-AMA dosha, but it's out. It's whacked out, but it's without AMA, and that's a nice thing, right? And that's when when you see people that are pretty much healthy, they haven't gotten let's say they diagnosed disease, things like that. It's before it's third stage, maybe prasara. You can see that. You can run into non-AMA conditions and deal with them well. It's pretty easy, right? In general, how do we deal with near-AMA conditions? Well, those dosha management I gave you when someone's near-AMA, the best thing for someone who's Vata aggravated is oleation. That's almost like the key. It somehow magically brings them back. Right? If someone has Pitta aggravation and so on, then soothing, kind of toning down that fire, so actually, again, oleation in a way, calming, soothing attitude, right? And changing the diet, things like that will work really pretty well. And diffusing that sharpness, that intensity. With kapha, well, simply, whether they have AMA or not, it's almost the same strategy. Like Dr. Allen always says, kapha, treat like an enemy. Same as AMA. You have to a certain extent, you have to treat like an enemy, but be mindful about what doshas are behind them. Because you don't want to treat Pitta AMA or Vata AMA like an enemy necessarily. Right? Because they'll fight back, especially in Pitta. Okay, so let me see. A couple little last notes before we leave this field of Samanarama is, questions is going to be the big key of how you're going to determine AMA. The tongue, right, coding, is, again, going to be a huge piece. If you delve deeper into the pulse, its amplitude, sluggishness, you can feel AMA in the pulse pretty well. I haven't found a lot of people that come in initially, they have AMA, it's hard to read their pulses. It's almost like cloudy and sluggish. You just get those qualities. Later on, as things are clear, general AMA is clear to the system, then organs can have that kind of really cloudy, kind of difficult to feel in their pulses. It's like, and then after things are really clear, the pulse changes, it becomes clear. I can read it like as if it's written on the wall. So easy. But AMA can really make it difficult to read pulses. So it's a good thing to know if you venture into that field. So if you have a really difficult time getting anything from someone's pulse, I mean, that could be skill level and practice, but if they're showing a lot of AMA, sometimes you have to just let it go until that clears. Okay.
So just a question, Merrick. So when we have a client who has AMA, let's say, and we're treating them with Dipan Pachan to help get rid of this AMA, it's going to likely get worse before it gets better. So they necessarily, as it's coming out of the tissues, is there a possibility that they end up with headaches and whatnot that indicate that there is AMA?
Here's my advice about that. Never assign someone homework that you don't want to happen. And what I mean by that, and this is where the psychology really comes in, is if you tell someone that, like this is something we teach a lot in massage school, but this is very applicable to this situation. If you say that, let's say for massage, you're getting a massage, likely you'll be sore for the next day, so apply ice. You'll be amazed at how many people feel sore the next day. If you tell them, you should just feel better and better from this, you'll rarely ever have someone tell you they're sore. I mean, barring that you're doing good therapy and you're not doing it way too deep, you're actually respecting the tissues. It's amazing. There's been studies done that show the impact psychologically. So be very careful when going into these like Herxler healing reaction stuff. So much of it is like placebo, and so much of it is not really there. People can induce that very easily. So be very aware. Now, yes, it could happen. They could get a little worse, but it's not in like a guarantee. And please don't make them feel like it's a guarantee. Right? Try to guarantee them the other way. Be like, you should be feeling great. This is going to make you feel better. Then they'll set up the mechanisms for that to happen much better. One thing to keep in mind too is it's about intensity. It's about their sensitivity and the intensity of the treatment that really is going to make that happen. If they're very sensitive or oversensitive because of really aggravated Vata and Pitta, then yeah, they may have a bit of that. I have one client that I'm working with right now, and I've seen this a lot, is everything, they have all these reactions. They don't even make sense actually, because they're like immediate to stuff, and it's like it's just not totally real that physically that's happening, but it's more this kind of like nervous system sensitivity reactions. So that's one case. Someone could be very, very, very oversensitized because of, again, high Pitta, high Vata, especially Maja. And another thing is that you may be doing a really strong cleansing. It may be coming out like in Panchakarma. Yeah, it's not uncommon for people to not feel great, but it usually passes relatively quickly. Then they feel so much better. They just feel amazingly good. So be careful about your wording. Try to speak positive and reinforce that that's not going to happen. And you'll probably have just so much more success with that and confidence that people have. Now, if you do that, everything you're doing your best, but then they still have that, well, okay, you have to work with it, and you have to do a little shamana, right? You have to help them out, whether it's psychologically or give them some things to maybe ease that transition, like for headaches and so on. Okay, Natalie. So
yeah, thank you. Yeah, that's good.
Okay.
Is the duration of the purging or whatever, if it's shorter, does that mean it's more likely to be you're doing a detox? And if it's more long-term malaise, then that probably isn't, because I can bring up what I went through last night, where I was like, oh my God, am I getting sicker? And then I was like, but as soon as everything purged, I felt better. And so then I thought, well, maybe that was a detox. So if it's something like that, where it's like, it's quick, your body's just like, it's eliminating stuff, and then you feel better, is that more likely to be a detox, as opposed to, if I'm still feeling crappy for the next couple of weeks,
They
less
could
likely?
both could be that. It's just a matter of your body's doing a strong thing to get rid of it quickly, efficiently, right? And you feel better. Or it's not capable, so it needs a little boost. So that's where, if someone you're working with, you as a practitioner probably need to help that along a little bit. Right? You need to increase the pacha, and you need to give them some eliminative therapies, whether it be diuretics, laxatives, diphoretics, to get it out of there a little more quicker, okay? Because it's getting stuck. It's not finding or your body isn't strong enough or able to do it, or it's blocked, right? So that's where it's useful as a practitioner to have those skills to be able to do that, kind of facilitate that. And that's what's done a lot in Panchakarma. It's like, okay, this wasn't complete. You have to do it next day. You have to do 2 variations. Or we need to kind of give you some extra side herbs to help clear that out. Okay? So yeah, it's a great question. It's important. It's like, it's really easy to get pigeonholed into like, oh, if it's quick, or the detox reactions. You have to take everyone for what it is and see, is it going through? Are you detoxing, and where is it detoxing into? Is it going all the way out of your body, or is it getting stuck somewhere? Okay, because when the ama comes out, it wants to go all the way out. If it comes out from your deep tissues into your blood, but it doesn't get out of your blood, it's just going to go right back or find a new place. Because it's circulating around now. And you're probably not going to feel awesome when you have ama circulating in your blood. And that's when you may have sweats and fevers and things like that. Right? And so on and so on. So you have to go through to the final stage and get it out of your system. Right? Kind of raise your hand here. How many of us have had incomplete detoxes? Yeah, it's a common thing, right? We probably all have that. We've experimented with different things, and we never quite got it all the way out. And then, felt maybe a little better. Then it went away, and we felt better when the toxins went back into our tissues or whatnot. So, okay, let me go ahead and talk about nausea. Okay, so I wanted to talk about that a little. Because nausea is kind of a fun thing. It's like, it's something that's safe to do in a minor way. You should have some knowledge about how to do it, and it's something that's in the usual spectrum of giving to people as far as Ayurvedic remedies go, right? So we've under our skill set, we've been able to work with Dipan and Pachan herbs and so on like that. You have some skills with some use of laxatives, right? And among a lot of those herbs, like if you just take Triphala, okay, here you go. You got an arsenal of laxatives there, more or less. They tend to eliminate through your digestive tract, like Virachin-wise, right? Now, if you take CCF, coriander, for instance, is a great diuretic, right? They're all cited kind of all semi-diuretic there anyways, but it's diuretics are very common. It's almost impossible, well, not totally, but almost impossible to find an herb that is a diuretic. It doesn't somehow work on that system of eliminating through the urine. It's the most common, I would say. Diphoretics, things that make you sweat. You got cinnamon, right? And you got cardamom ways, ginger, right? And all these different herbs make you sweat. You got baths, you got sweating therapy to work with people, you got exercise, right? And now, when you're getting into more extremes like Vama and Virachin, Basti, that's where Ayurvedic practitioners, you need to have a little more knowledge of how to work with that. However, you're already having like some herbs that do that. You're already having diet lifestyle stuff that help with that. Now, nausea is a good bridge. Nausea is interesting because nausea is the final panchakarma remedy. Right? It's kind of what you do at the end of panchakarma to clear any excess doshas that are hanging out around the body, but also, especially the head, neck, throat area. This area, basically from collarbone out, any doshas. What is so useful for you as an Ayurvedic Wellness Council too is nausas really help you get into the mind, They're an access door into the mind. Okay, and that's why I want to share them with you too. Is it gives you tools to work with someone's mental emotional sphere. So let's go dive into this and kind of talk about some of the indications and so on. So nausea is kind of a doorway into someone's consciousness and also a pathway into someone's inner pharmacy. It's very potent, and at the same time can be really universally used as a healing application. Any medications that are administered through the nasal passageways have a direct impact on the mind, all the mechanisms of the mind that we've talked about long before. Prana, subdosha, right? If people have issues with prana, ADHD, concentration issues, sensory issues. Udana, upward moving vata issues. One thing to be mindful of is nausea in its nature, just the action of doing nausea, not necessarily the substance you give, but the action of doing nausea stimulates upward moving energy. So it's not something you want to do. A lot of its contraindications, which I'll go over in a little bit. You have to be careful. If you're in the midst of a downward moving process that is important, like menstruating, like trying not to have your baby come early, for instance, other things like that you really need to apana to be strong and downward moving, then that's one contraindication. It may not be the best time to do nausea, but it depends on the substance you give. The substance you can give can actually, balance that flow. So anyways, the mind, prana, udana, and tarpaka, kapha. Tarpaka definitely, because tarpaka, we oftentimes, it's just our memory, it's our white matter in our brain, but it's a lot more than that. Tarpaka kapha is our brain lymphatics, it's our sinuses, it's all right here, and that's this tarpaka kapha. I am now having tarpaka kapha, inflammation and issue with sinus stuff. And then there's sadhaka. It works with sadhaka very well. So prana, sadhaka, tarpaka, those are the key subdoshas for the manobhashotas. Right? And it has a special affinity for majadhatu, which also includes your hormones, endocrine system. So this is a nice tool to have in the bag. Using nausea is a really nice tool to have in your bag. So I'm going to go over just some general indications. Some general things is nausea is generally used in cases of like stiffness or pain in neck, jaw, or head, headaches, right? Jaw, TMJ, it's useful for neck. Because it pulls doshas out of there for elimination, as well as alma for elimination out of your nose. Headaches, migraines, it's well indicated for that. Sinus pain and congestion. Toothache, loose teeth, receding gums, because it does affect the mouth, sorry. Hoarseness of voice, so throat issues too, it's useful. Eye issues, because it's so close to the eye, I'll pull doshas from there. Nervous issues of the head. Obstruction issues in the throat. Tonsillitis, laryngitis, pharyngitis, all those kind of itises. Speech disorders, all right? Bell's palsy, like facial paralysis, is the closest elimination therapy for this. Thyroid, it works with thyroid. Okay. Goiters, thyroid, glaucoma, eye stuff. Pituitary, endocrine issues. Tumors, space-occupying tumors, brain stuff. Unconsciousness and fainting, depleted sexual energy, and really everything over any disorder above your clavicle. So one other thing I want to talk about, especially, you may wonder, how does it work with like sexual energy? So the lining, it's been found that your epithelial cells in your nose are directly related to the ovaries and testicles. Okay, so nausea is useful, especially for like endocrine issues with menstrual, women's health, and so on, as well as male too. Right, so you can use that to help with issues down there. Like I often, if I see someone that has like women's health issues, endocrine type issues, and stuff going on in mind, mentally stressed, all this. And nausea is usually a really nice thing to give them. I may have them go off it during their menses, but during the other 3 weeks, let's say, we could be using that.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah, please.
In case of a person like have menstruations too often, like every 2 weeks, and really rough voice, so there is Vata there probably.
Yes.
So and nausea would be very helpful there. Yeah.
Yes. And we'll go over the types of nauseas, so it'll become clear which one to use. Okay. One last thing, let me go over contraindications, then I want to go into dosages and how to really do it. Okay, and then we'll go into types of nauseas. So some general contraindications, and kind of why, to children under 7 and old age, over 80, really only because of the potential coughing, gagging. Okay. Pregnancy, because again, it reverses that flow upward, kind of. It's not the best thing. Okay? You should be careful. It can be done, but it needs to be very careful. Menstruation, yeah, upward, downward flow. You don't want to confuse the body. When you do nausea, it's a strong signal to activate prana and udana. Now, if you have an activity, your body's trying to do something that's apana or vyana or other things like exercising or doing that, it's not the time to do it. You got to wait till those abate. Okay? Yeah, so you got to give it time to settle down instead of messing with it. Okay? For the exact same reason that you don't want to do like stressful activities, like if you're digesting, you're eating a meal, doing a lot of overstimulation, it's not the time to do nausea either. You do it on an empty stomach, not after a meal, for that very reason. Okay, so as long as you understand that concept, it gives you a clear indication of what are the contraindications too. So just before, after a shower or bath. Now, a reason, well, Vyana is being stimulated. You should get the benefits of that instead of changing the direction. But besides that, water is going to be around your nose. Do not mix water with oil. That's a great way to create fungal infections. Okay? Indigestion or full stomach, not the time to do nauseas. Diarrhea, your body's trying to eliminate down when you're trying to eliminate up, bad idea. Let it do its thing. Thirst or dehydration, not necessarily the best time to do nausea either. Hunger or hypoglycemia, again, not necessarily. Exertion, intoxication, right? Your brain's dealing with stuff, you're intoxicated, so not time to do nausea. Physical exercise, acute fevers, not really the time to do it. Grief, when someone's in tremendous amounts of grief. That's a general contraindication for panchakarma too. Having done any panchakarma treatment, you don't combine nausea with that same day. And not to do it at the same time that you're also doing neti pot. You got to choose one or the other, because neti pot's going to make a lot of water usually stay in the sinuses. Some will always be there from the neti pot for a couple hours after. So don't mix the oil and water again. Choose one or the other. Okay, a little talk about, first of all, timing. When do you do and for how long? So generally, you could get really beneficial effect. If you're doing the full-on nausea and its fullest sense, you don't really do it more than 1 week at a time. But there's ways of doing it less that you can do on a daily basis, since we kind of talked about dinacharya. So I'll talk about that in a minute. But timing for kapha type issues, morning and evening, kapha hours, very good time to do it. And you can really do it in the evening for kapha. It's not if someone really has that issue. Pitta midday is a good time to do it, but you can also pull it off in the morning. It's okay in the evening you can do that, but midday is a great time. Maybe like before eating, a little bit before eating meals. Vata, dawn, and dusk. Now, the one thing I'll tell you about that is Vatas, I often don't have them do in the evening because it does stimulate prana and udana. So if they're having a hard time with insomnia, not a good thing. It can be a little too stimulating. Depends what you give them, though. The substance of nausea will determine that. Okay. But if you're just kind of giving a generalized tridoshic formula like super nausea or the Banyan formula, it may not be the best idea. Okay. Dosage. So for adults, the normal dosage for just generalized usage is 5 drops. The way you do nausea is you should be laying down. You put like a roll or pillow, or like a rolled towel or a pillow over your neck, so your head's leaning over back. So it's clearly back and down. So the nose is pointing up pretty much. You put 5 drops in each nostril, and you go around the nostril. In Ayurveda, we talk about 5 elements of breathing, so you hit all the 5 elements of breath. But in general, you also try to lubricate as much as possible instead of in one place. So you move around 5 drops in each nostril. And then you sniff it a little bit, and then you rest for about 5 minutes so it can actually absorb while your head's lying back. You don't just jump up and down. Now, some of that's probably going to get to your throat. You can spit it out. Okay, that's important to do that, but it will start lubricating your throat. Hence, it works on the throat too. Okay, that's a proper way to do nausea. It's best if you give yourself a little massage, right? You can do sort of Mara points, massage this whole sinus area. You use a little oil if you want to as part of the little abhyanga. Okay, you can sequence it after doing eye drops in the morning. You can sequence after like brush your teeth, all those different things. Okay, but be careful with the shower, your morning routine or exercise, or food for that matter. For children, 3 drops in each nostril is okay. Okay. If you happen to do dry powder nausea, as opposed to oils or ghees or milks or whatever, or juices or fluids, the dry powder nausea is you pinch with 3 fingers, take a pinch with 3 fingers on it. So it's probably like a 1/4 teaspoon, 1/8 of a teaspoon-ish, and you sniff that. And it's usually done by like a little bulb that sprays up there. That's a very popular thing, I think, in the turn of the century. With a lot of people used to use snuff and all that things. You can use a little tube too. Like traditionally, it's blown through a tube into the powder. Like someone blow a rubber tube into a powder bin and then a tube up someone's nose. Now, there's 5 general types of nausea. I'll just go to them. I'll list them first. Virachana or Shodhana, Pradhamana type of nausea. But basically, Virachana is the cleansing. Shodhana. These tend to be pretty strong too, like they use in Panchakarma. And they're basically to cleanse the doshas out. And this is where dry powders are used. They're very stimulating, make you sneeze, make things come out. Dry powders, for instance, of calamus, brahmi, jatamamsi, things like that. And these are more specific for kapha disorders. Okay, again, you're using dry powder to combat that oily kind of thing. Headache or heaviness in the head, cold, stickiness in eyes, runny nose, sinusitis, things like that. When you have a lot of like kapha and liquid quality too, so the dry won't aggravate it. Hoarseness of voice due to kapha. Okay. Cervical lymph congestion anywhere here, things like that. Okay. The opposite of that. Can
you repeat some of the herbs used in powders?
Yeah, calamus, brahmi, gotakola kind of, jatamamsi are common. Again, you're using a dry powder here. Practically what you can do is take a little pinch of it and sniff it, and that one pinch is for both nostrils. You gotta sniff that up there. Okay, probably be easier to do in the tube somehow. Like use some of those swirly straws or something like that. It's not very commonly done. It's not the most common thing. But like for me, I could probably benefit from taking a little powder of matcha and sniff out my nose right now. It'd be well indicated because I definitely do have a kapha type issue. I may put some brahmi with it to kind of make sure because I have some inflammation too for pitta. The next type of nausea, a little more common, and it's these first 2 categories of what you're using in Panchakarma most of the time, right, is bruhana or tarpana, kind of nutritive. Okay, this is more so for vata, better used for vata, and for dhatu kshaya, like when the dhatus really need to be strengthened. So strengthening, tonifying substances, which are put up the nose. And this is where you see substances like ghee. Salt can be used here too because it's tonifying. Shatavari ghee, ashwagandha ghee, right? Medicated milks, medicated oils, strong medicated oils. And so let's say someone has a reproductive issue, has amenorrhea, is losing their menses. You may want to give them shatavari ghee in the nose to help with that, to build them up. They're low on weight, a lot of vata issues, things like that. This would be very well indicated. Yeah. So if you're doing a Brahmana therapy, that's your approach, it's on the straight up, and this would be, you consider using things like this. So really vata, nervous anxiety, things like that, nervous anxiety, so on. And when they're really showing up with dryness in the nostrils. Now, shamana, sedative nasyas. This is the most common variety that we're going to be using. Okay? If we're not doing like full-on panchakarma, we're using these more stronger preparations. Shamana nasyas, so medicated decoctions. Like usually, this is where you get the mix of herbs or essential oils in there. It's usually not just one herb for a specific purpose. That's really strong. Teas, fresh juices of herbs, medicated oils that are dosha specific. Brahmi ghee falls into this category for pitta. Vacha oil falls in the category for like kapha or vata. Tikta ghee, bitter ghee for pitta and kapha to some extent. Vata too can be used for. If you have pitta pushing vata in the nose. Juices, Brahmi juice, Guduchi juice, aloe vera you can use here. Now, shamana nasyas are really good for pitta disorders or inflammation conditions. Right? So that'll be a good use for these. As opposed to like when we're talking about that Longana or Brahmana kind of strong approach. This is more for like kind of like mellowing things out when you have the inflammation. So before you could do one of those other approaches, let's say. So for instance, if someone has nosebleeds, then using shatavari ghee would be good here. Neem oil could be useful in the nose if someone has eczema or psoriasis on the scalp, a lot of conditions or rashes on the face. Or tikta ghee, bitter ghee. And then another kind of subcategory, this is where they start overlapping a lot. The Shamana Nasya and the Navana Nasya, which is next, it kind of overlaps a lot. They're either going to fall in that Brahmana or Longana category. Navana Nasyas, decoctions, fresh juices, and oils sometimes mixed together for aggravated doshas. So they're usually kind of mixed preparations. And these are the ones, this is what we see on the market mostly, like the Banyan is kind of somewhat tridoshic. Dr. Ladd's like super nasyas tridoshic. They're used for combined dosha conditions. Whether it's vata pushing pitta or pitta kapha disorders or all tridoshic. And that's where you're going to see stuff that's kind of like eucalyptus, brahmi, matcha, and some licorice or something, something else, a rose. And so it kind of works with all the doshas in general. So this is like when you have multiple doshic aggravation. So if you look at these, if you're just using a strong nasya for a specific thing, that's when you're like fine-tuning it and using for panchakarma purposes, let's say, or Brahmana Longana, like really, clear-cut therapy. If you're not totally sure, or if you're trying to palliate a dosha, just kind of palliate them, that's when you're probably going to be using a little more generalized substance. Or that Navana Nasya, if you have a couple different doshas going on, then you can kind of give it a try with that. I usually, personally, I like to start with that. I often recommend, the Banyan Nasya. It's kind of generalized, and it's overall good for Vata and Pitta. Super nausea is better for more overall kapha kind of conditions, congestion conditions, let's say, if they tend towards that. And if you're having a lot of dryness, that's when you use more like the oils or ghee kind of nauseas too. And inflammation, that's when you're really thinking about brahmi or tiktagrita and so on. Now, one more thing too is if it's difficult for someone to do nausea, it's difficult for them to be in the flow of doing it. They're not complying, let's say. What they can do on a daily basis is called pratimarsha. And this is simply, or marsha or pratimarsha. You of course, cut your nails, make sure it's clean, and then you put the oil or ghee or whatever it is, and you put it on there, and you do a gentle massage of your tissues. You slowly go deeper and deeper, okay? Now, this is very useful because it also helps with emotional release because working on the nose has correspondence with lungs. All nauseas do, but this is a gentle way of kind of being persistent with that. I like to do this with clients if they have a lot of allergies. Twice a day, they can take like brahmi ghee or just ghee or oil or eucalyptus oil if they're congested, and just put it up there, massage it so that they lubricate. They put a protective barrier on their nose from all the allergens that are coming up.
The timing for this sort of practice is the same as nausea.
Yeah, same thing. It's just a mellow daily form of nausea that you can do if you want to do it for a long period of time. Okay, so you're more or less you probably are getting similar things, but it's just a little more mellow way of doing it. It doesn't go all the way through, it doesn't coat as deeply, let's say. And you're probably using a much more mellower substance too. I'm just going to say though too, also some of you may have experienced I think some of you have done some panchakarma work, been in India or something like this, is dosage and strength of it is a really key element too. When I was in India doing panchakarma, it was no joke with the nauseas. They were, I was more or less screaming in pain of everything coming out of me from the nausea. It was so strong. It would pour stuff would bleed, profusely coming out of my nose. The largest experience I ever had of that in India was I had hepatitis A, really strong case of viral hepatitis A, and my eyes are totally yellow. It's bile like in my blood everywhere else hepatitis A. I was just this great Ayurvedic doctor. He there's this one spiky, I call it the spiky ball plant. I don't know what it is. Dr. Lalabhai, he wouldn't tell me, but it's kind of a secret plant. And I soaked it overnight in water, right? So for Pitta dosha, obviously. Now that I think about it, I soaked it overnight in water, and then I used that water to put up my nose, right, through a dropper. The next day was excruciating. I was having yellow bile coming streaming out my nose all day. The day after that, my eyes were clear. I felt great. I was on recovery already, 2 days from hepatitis. Pretty awesome. It usually lasts a couple of weeks. I had to recover still, but it was amazing how well I recovered. So strength of substances is very important here too. Just to know the general oils that you get from Band-Aid and all this stuff are really toned down compared to some of the products they use in India.
So you think that herb was specific for hepatitis? Or for
liver hepatitis. Yeah. So of the things that nausea's indicated, areas of the body, fields of action it has, obviously anything clavicle up, but reproductive organs is another one, like we've talked about, and liver is too. So nausea has a nasal tissue somehow, I can't explain why, but they have an affinity for your liver too.
The liver and the eyes are connected. In Chinese medicine,
yeah.
Well,
yeah.
not in China. It's one of the organs that can regenerate itself. So that's why we associate the liver with the eyes. That's an organ.
Yeah, absolutely. And obviously the nausea has a direct correlation with that too. Yeah. But it's interesting. On a Western physiological level, it's kind of interesting to see. The epithelial tissue nose is a Western science thing, but the liver, we don't know that, but it is true. So I had a first-hand experience. So that's an overview of nausea. You can go deeper and deeper into the subject, but it's a useful tool to have in your tool bag. I also look at nausea as a way to make it easier to take, like, especially mind herbs. If I want someone to, like Brahmi, if they're just not complying with Brahmi tea and I want to take a high enough dose, or they have reproductive issues, things like that, then nausea is usually a quick, easy way I can get them to do that in a day and have a potent and more immediate effect on the mind. So it's a useful tool. Okay, so we've covered that. Let me, as opposed to kind of going over stuff, because we've covered things before, but I wanted to mention about care of the senses. All of you, I think we've talked about eye cups and doing droppers for the eyes. So, various substances, rose water, an eye cup, Triphala eye wash, when you're taking care of the eyes. Nausea is obviously good eye care too. Milks, medicated milks are used there. Ghees. You can go all the way to panchakarma therapy, or it's used in panchakarma often, is netrabasti. That's a lot of eye care as far as Coryllium, and also paste that they put on the eyes and so on. Ears, mostly for ears, you can do powders, dry powders, kind of like the nauseas, as well as oils, medicated oils or just unmedicated oils. So that's called karnapura, right? Are you all clear about how to do karnapura, like really properly? Do you want me to go over that really quickly? Okay. And this is something I give to people a lot, is the karnapura, as well as eye cup and so on. Eye cups, it's pretty obvious. That's an easy one to get to people. But karnapura, so one needs a towel, one needs a dropper bottle, and a bottle for whatever substance you're going to do. And it needs to have a warmer, because it has to be body temperature, not too hot, not too cold. Okay, very important. If you're just putting cold oil in there, bad idea. It's not going to do what it's supposed to do. And if it's too hot, it's going to irritate it really quickly. Has to be body temperature so your body doesn't react. You have to fool the body to not react. That's actually nice to do with nauseas too, or anything else you're doing, is to kind of bring it up to a body temperature so that your body doesn't have a reaction to either heat or cool it. So either tissues get tightened or kind of get shocked. So I have them lay on the towel. The head has to be flat, so the ear's there. And I fill the ear up entirely, okay, with the oil. And then have them massage the ear, and then massage the mastoid bone and all the way up to the TMJ joint with the same oil you're using. Okay, so massage it all around, and then massage the ear really well and pull on the ear so that you can put various like fascial pulls on the ear canal so it can really thoroughly coat that. And it'll shift around the wax if they have it there too, to kind of make it more looser to come out. If someone has a lot of earwax, you may not want to do an oil. You may want to first do like a bit of hydrogen peroxide, get the wax cleared out of there to be more effective. But if it's a light amount of earwax, the oil can melt the earwax and help facilitate it coming out. So you leave it in there, until it cools off, but at least 5 to 10 minutes. And then you have to turn their head on that towel. That's why it's there, so they can pour it out. And then you can use you can kind of press the hand in to suction cup it, create a suction with your palm to get the oil out if they need to get it out. So you can teach them to do that. And that way they'll have a decent experience. Do that away from showering, because you don't want water to go with the oil in the ear canal. Okay. Often I have them do it like PM or AM when they're not bathing, just to make sure that doesn't happen. And some of the sesame oil is highly indicated because is ear and seat of vata? Yes. So sesame oil is very indicated. I love to give garlic sesame oil. And the way you do that is you chop up, for every ounce of oil, you chop up 1 or 2 cloves of garlic, chop them fine, put them in a tablespoon. What I usually do is I have a tablespoon or something bigger, and I put it directly over the oven, whether it's flame heat or whatever. Just make sure it's far enough so it doesn't burn quick or heat up too quick. You lightly heat it up with those chunks of garlic in it until they start to brown in the oil. Then you take it off, you strain off the garlic, and then you funnel that oil and let it cool off. And that's strong garlic oil. great for kids' ear infections or adults. It works when it's that strong. Okay, so that's how you quickly make oil for the, yeah.
I've seen that one, it's recommended only 2 drops rather than the usual 5. Or you just do fill the ears, or just the same?
Fill the ears. When you do chiroport, you fill the ears. Yeah, fill them up. Okay. The way you look at it here is there's no, the more is not any different necessarily, because if you don't put enough, you're not going to coat the whole ear. Remember, you're working with like a ditch here. Whereas with Nasya, the more can be a lot, you're working with a whole system. It's very long tunnel and it has an opening, right? So it's a different thing. Why you give different numbers, and you're breathing. You can't breathe through your ear to suck it down, right? So that's why we do that. Okay. So that's Karnapurna. Okay. And of course, for head care, doing Shiro Snehana, right? Shirodhara, Shiro Snehana. So getting oil in the head and scalp, medicated oils is just such a great way. If someone can't do it full abhyanga, do it at least that is wonderful. Everybody know the trick of how to get oil out of your hair? Because that's usually the biggest issue, right? Just to repeat that, to get oil out of your hair after you've put a ton of oil in your hair, because that's the biggest compliance issue, is before you step in the shower, you do not get your hair wet. You put the shampoo into your hand and put it all over, a good amount of shampoo all over your oily hair. Let it sit there for just a minute or two. It'll break down the oils. Then you get a little bit of water on there, shampoo it up, and it comes out like a charm. You may have to do a rinse, wash, and repeat once, but it'll get any amount of oil out of your hair really quickly. As long as you cover enough shampoo, something that'll attack the oil without water. If you put water on the oil before you get shampoo in, good luck. It's going to be like washing and rushing, right? That's a big compliance issue for people. Okay. So that's an important piece. Another little great suggestion for the head in a mind therapy is what I call Pichu. This is home Shirodhara. You get like a ketchup bottle that you can squirt oil in. You warm it up nicely. You have someone lay down. You can do it yourself. You got a good rag that can prevent the oil from going in there. Okay? And you squirt it right here under the rag on your third eye, kind of. Make sure you're back far enough. You can have a little piece of cheesecloth on your head so it doesn't drip in your eyes. You squirt it there, just gently, every few minutes, put it back in a bottle warmer right by you, and then just take it, or have someone do that for you. And it'll just soak in with that warm oil. You can have a gentle heat pad on there, not too high, and that'll keep it nice and warm. It's beautiful. It's home Shirodhara. It works very well. Okay, so to conclude, you have a little study sheet, kind of like my other courses. Not giving any answers, but it kind of gives an overview of what each class was about, what things to study and keep in mind. The end of the semester test is not that hard. I made it particularly kind of obvious as long as you didn't hear it in class. So it's been wonderful. This kind of concludes this big revolution. A lot of you have, actually all of you have gone through from module 3, 4, 5 with me in this last year, right? And this is awesome. I hope that you've learned well and gotten a lot of benefit from this and can apply it. And of course, we got internship. Summer semester starts next week, so I guess I'll be seeing all of you at internship still. And we're restarting Ayurvedic anatomy again, module 3. So wonderful. So you've been kind of the test group, honest. So have you enjoyed? Has it been a good flow with the homeworks and everything? Do you feel it's been a good thing? Yeah, I would love to hear some feedback. I would love to hear, not on like the technical aspect, but on just kind of like the content and the learning, anything people have to offer. I always love to hear a little feedback after we finish this round. So if there's any way, if you can think of, if you've noted any ways that I can improve, the way I deliver this, I would love that. That's the best feedback to get. So
I feel like I have a better handle on how things work. I say better handle because I don't think I have a handle on it yet. I think you're very knowledgeable and passionate, and that comes through. And you also make it very practical. I think the only thing I'd love more of would be just to have like maybe an outline for the class, so we could follow. Because I mean, we have the textbook, but that's really dense, and I'm always behind with it. So if there was like an outline with bullet points, that would just like make it like perfect, you know?
Yeah. No, that's a great tool. It's a great tool. Yeah.
I agree with Stephanie. That I love the classes, and I really like how you always integrate the content from, you know, you're always asking, okay, what shrotas or what subdoshas are, so that kind of keeps our brains going back to the other classes to connect things and not forget about it. And that's what I noticed, that, oh, yeah, I have to study the subdoshas again and things like that. And my only suggestion would be that for lists or things that you add that are not in the textbook, I think you gave us a kind of a 10-point thing once, or sometimes you give us other information that are not. I would only ask for, and it's just for how to write it, because sometimes it's difficult for us when we're taking notes, because it's not, we don't have a reference in the book. Maybe you can supply a sheet or something in the same course in the lesson.
Yeah, absolutely, and that's a great idea. So I'm using, to not make it harder on you, I didn't acquire any other books. I mean, you already, got some monstrous books, but but I'm integrating stuff from other things, my notes and things like that, which are different, which is good.
Yeah, and I love it. And I would either suggest that you use your pad, your notepad, and maybe you can write the term there so we can write it, because sometimes it's like, I don't know. Pronunciation and things like that. It's like we don't know how it's, but that's my only suggestion.
Yeah.
I really love that you integrate other books and yeah, for me it's like always overwhelming because it's so much content, but every time it just feels that things are more connected and they make more sense, and little by little, and with practice also. Right, when we practice, then that's when it all comes together. Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you.
And now you go.
No, it's you. I was just saying thank you.
Oh. All right. Now, the other thing that I was going to add is, for me in particular, I need to have, sometimes I don't fully understand your words, what you're saying. So if you are actually referring to a specific page in the book, if you could let us know so that we can have the same page open and I can follow you better.
Okay, good. Yeah. I know that a lot of you didn't have stuff too, so I feel like I've done that a little bit more in the last pieces. I put in a lot of page references, but yeah, that's actually a great thing. One thing I wanted to know personally that I would like in the Ayurvedic education world, which I think is highly needed, is some actual proper textbooks that are aimed at Ayurvedic wellness counselors. Let me just explain this a little bit. Dr. Lott's books are amazing, but they're over the top. I mean, do we all agree? I mean, it's like reading the sutras. There's not too much difference, right? It's and those are a little more easier to read than his books. They're over the top. They were not written by him. They were his lectures that were taken and put together in some sort of sensible format by his students, by people, editors. So that's one thing we know. He didn't sequentially sit down and write it. And that's not his forte. It really isn't. Like he's open and spontaneous. It's taken decades for him to kind of even get into like a regular format or trail of teaching. So these textbooks are amazingly brilliant. They're the best thing we have, but they're not sequential, steady learning necessarily. But there's nothing else. If you look at the field, like we have some basic textbooks on Ayurveda, you have some slightly better ones like Todd Caldicott's and Pohl's, but they're not sufficient to really learn Ayurveda. Right. So we have this big gap, and that makes it difficult. A lot of other learning subjects have been learned for a long time. You have some very clear sequential textbooks that take you from point A to point Z, and if they're well done, then they will have that cycles of repeating. But we don't have that in Ayurveda yet. So it's a really interesting journey. But you are all brave because you're taking this course with the highest level textbooks that are out there. And I'm trying to navigate to create a pathway through them that's sensible. And there's a piece too, right? Like we didn't get through half of textbook 3, but a lot of that stuff, it's just over the top, right? That's for every practitioners or even doctors, etc. So it's interesting. And Dr. Lab someday maybe plans on doing part 4, which is pathologies. So I can't wait for that, but it's still a ways coming probably. So it'd be interesting to see over time where things develop. Some schools actually use the old ancient texts to do it, and that's not a bad idea. It's a monstrous, expensive, but yeah, nonetheless. But yeah, anything else? This is great. I'd like to hear the feedback.
Just a question, actually.
Yeah.
If we can, well, probably you don't know actually because you're not Ayurveda. I was thinking, what's the next? When you finish the Ayurvedic health consult, so you go into the practitioner level. What books do you study? Are you still study on these books, or you get other books?
No, it's a good question. And I'll kind of let you in on my thoughts on that, kind of as an educator with this, is the books that you have are geared towards practitioner, right? Practitioner doctors. So they can carry you the whole way, especially if you wrote that pathology book. That'd be really awesome. And then there's going to be specialty subjects that you're going to go deeper into, okay? Herbology, panchakarma, etc. Okay, so I mean, and really pathology is really going to be the key thing here. Now, do you have we held back any information up to doctorate level for you? No, not really. There isn't advanced dosha knowledge or advanced ama knowledge or advanced. You got the foundation. That's the same foundation that you, a practitioner or a doctor, has. There's no more advanced. There's some particulars, about particular ways of how some doshas and doshas, and it's all, mostly head stuff, to train your mind to think about it clearly. But you have all of it. So that's another thing. So I would say these textbooks will carry you through the whole way. When I was studying with Dr. Lad, what we did, for instance, is the second year, really the practitioner year, was hardcore pathology, much more into herbs, panchakarma, learning about that. And then, adjunct modalities, but marma and some other different things. And then some maybe, because I was with Uma, they really went hardcore on women's health. So we got a big chapter of that. And so, but it was really kind of off the cuff too. And we went into really, how do you think about pathologists? How do you correctly, diagnose? How do you correctly do that? So I'd say that's the thing. It's not like there's this whole breadth of subject matter that has been hidden that is only going to reveal at practitioner level, right? Now, going over it umpteen times is what makes you better at it, right? You see, you've kind of raised the field, and the field may look very dense and bushy still, but you got to keep grazing and keep grazing and keep mowing it until it's manageable, right? And that's, I would say that's really the approach. It's not like there's more special stuff. It's more about specialization. It's more about pathology, really. You just gotta start learning about different disease conditions, how to identify them, how to work with them, and your herbs, the tools that you can actually use. And, different therapies, of course, Panchakarma stuff and adjunct therapies, so you can actually have a good tool bag to deal with what you're working with. Until now, we haven't had in this country a very big flow. It's like anybody, whatever level of education, was free to go however far down the rabbit hole they wanted to, practicing at a doctor level or practitioner level, regardless of education. Up to only until the last half decade or decade has there been even only more than one or two schools that have taught anywhere close to where you've gotten taught to. So that's another thing to consider. I mean, really only the Ayurvedic Institute was teaching to a high level. California School to some degree, and one or two others maybe, but that's about it. And then, things have been improving in the last few years, and schools have gone deeper and so on. So yeah, it's very, very interesting. So also I want to mention, you guys are more or less on the whole forefront of online learning with Ayurveda. Until now, until the last couple of years, we've had zero online learning formats. So you're really, I only know of one other program that teaches like this. I know of a couple other online programs, but they're really just Skyping you into their classroom if you happen to be there, as opposed to teaching totally online. Us and one other school are the only purely online programs that are intended for it to be totally online. So, and you're the first group for this, so it's you're heading the forefront of it. Okay. Well, blessings to y'all. It's been really wonderful. I'll see you next week in the internship. You're going to be meeting Uma next Wednesday with the women's health kind of piece. And I'll be popping in hopefully on KP's class for herbology. I'd love to hang back and do some studies with them. So hopefully I'll make questions that are interesting to you all and kind of relevant there. I'd love to pick his mind about some stuff, so it'd be fun. He'll probably be like, oh man, why is he in this class? Okay, so I hope to see you again for learning, being a teacher, and also being a really pesky student in the herbology class. Okay, blessings. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.